For those who don't know, my name is Bill Aulet. I'm from New York, and so I'm very direct about what I say. I'll probably offend some of you, and if I don't offend you, please see me before you go so I can make sure to offend you before you go, all right? But what I'll do is just, I'm very, very practical. I say I'm an accidental professor. I'm an entrepreneur by design. I'm very, very interested in how you get things done. That's my goal. All right, so I think the first thing that we do, and we did this yesterday with the professors, is what is entrepreneurship? And the first, even before we say, before we teach people entrepreneurship, we make clear that entrepreneurship can be taught. The research is very clear. The more times you're an entrepreneur, the better you get at it. You take our classes, your odds of success go up. We have lots of data on that. So we can teach entrepreneurship. Some people believe that you can't. That's not true. It's very clear you can. We have data. The second thing is, but I don't know whether I'm an entrepreneur or not. Can I become an entrepreneur? And everyone is born an entrepreneur. We were just talking about this yesterday and again earlier here today. Everyone is an entrepreneur. You're born an entrepreneur. The system might take it out of you, the system being you think you can't, you're not an entrepreneur. But I guarantee you, we're talking about refugees. Who's the one that's working with refugees? You're working with refugees. You might say, I don't know whether I can be an entrepreneur. If it came to you had to live or die, I guarantee you that you would figure out how to make something, how to trade something, how to provide a service. You would survive. You would be an entrepreneur. So human beings are born entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's the system, it's the culture that takes it out of us. But we are all entrepreneurs. So yes, entrepreneurship can be taught. Yes, anyone can be an entrepreneur. Maybe you can't be Steve Jobs, maybe you think you can't, but you are an entrepreneur. And I'm just going to talk about how we do that. And the first thing is, what is entrepreneurship? And entrepreneurship is the creation of something new. It's the creation of something new. In economic terms, there's nothing there, and then an entrepreneur comes in and creates something new for it. It is an exercise in capitalism. It's an exercise in market forces. In other words, I'm going to do something, it's going to create value for someone, and I can extract rent from somebody to pay for this value that I've created. So that's what entrepreneurship. Nothing there. I go in and I create a product, a service, something that someone values, and then someone will pay me. The payment that I get exceeds the cost that it takes to run my organization. And that, by the way, could be a nonprofit. It could be an organization within a larger organization, or it could be a startup. So entrepreneurship, nothing there. An entrepreneur comes in and creates something new. It creates some value for someone, and it extracts some value from somebody else. So that means that we could, the most common type of entrepreneur is what's often called an SME entrepreneur, a small medium enterprise entrepreneur. This is someone who has a restaurant, a nail salon, an IT service company. Many of you might have already done this. Many of your parents might have done this. These focus on local markets. Local markets. By that I mean they produce some service. A barber, I produce a service, I give people haircuts. I have to provide that service to them, and it's only for people who are local. And the thing is, if I have a good barber and I want to increase the revenue, then all I do is get another chair, or maybe I hire somebody else. And then I can increase the revenue. This delta T means, by the way, all these slides and everything are always available. There's all kinds of stuff online. But I'm just going to go through this quickly. What delta T means is the inertia of the system is very low. If I'm a barber and I want to increase my revenue, I buy a new chair and then I will quickly see whether that's successful or not. If it doesn't, then maybe I sell the chair and I go back to what I had before. That means this system has low inertia. It means that when I try something, I can try it and see whether it works and then get out of it quickly. But because I'm taking really lower risk and I'm spending less capital in it, I really never get this high growth. And if I want high growth and I want a much bigger market, I have to look at innovation-driven enterprise or innovation IDE entrepreneurship. And what is that? That means I produce a product that has some innovation in it that allows me to sell it more broadly. I'm not just doing something that the people locally will want. It's a product that I can sell into Germany, into France, into England, wherever, the United States. The market opportunity opens up dramatically because I have some innovation in it, and it's now a product as opposed to a service. And that product is such that I had to invest in it. I had to make some sort of investment here, be a patent, technology, something, new processes, that allows me to scale this business so that it comes out the other side. And that's why this grows so much faster than an SME, because I have an innovative product that can go after markets. See, here, for me to grow this, I have to throw bodies at it. I have to work more hours. I have to hire more people. In this, I can be asleep on my pillow and I'm getting money because I'm shipping a bucket, I'm shipping a widget that is a product. People are downloading buckets of bits and they're sending me money for that. This is a highly scalable business. That's why this one grows exponentially and is really uncapped. And so you might say, wow, then I want to do an IDE as opposed to an SME. Why doesn't everybody do that? Because you have to get through this valley of death right here. You have to have enough resources to be able to make an investment to come up with something that's innovative. You have to have an idea, you have to come up with a product. It takes time, and you don't know if that product's going to work. You do not know if that product, that replicatable service, is going to work. And so what happens from a system standpoint, how many of you are engineers here? You all are engineers, right? Yeah, good. We love engineers. We love engineers. Lawyers, not so much so. I'm worried. I think you might be a lawyer, sir. You're trying to fly undercover here, but I'm not sure. Could someone do some facial recognition on this guy? But this is the challenge to be a great entrepreneur. How do you get through this valley of death? Because you're not guaranteed to come out the other side. You can have an idea, you can spend a whole lot of money, but will the market buy it? Will they embrace it? And will you get to this land of milk and honey? And that's not necessarily going to happen. And so what we talk about in a very simple way is, how do you work this? How do you mitigate how do you de-risk this so you do come out the other side? How do you make this so that you can decrease the time and decrease the amount so that you can know that this is going to work? And that's the challenge of entrepreneurship, innovation-driven entrepreneurship. And that's what we really focus on, and I think you all should focus on. I think every single person in this room can do this, and maybe that's what you want to do. But if you really want to change the world and solve big problems, you've got to come up with innovation-driven entrepreneurial solutions. So aspire to this. And by the way, sometimes you say, well, I just want to do this. This is comfortable for me. Well, we used to have a lot of bookstores in Cambridge. You know what? Those bookstores are basically gone. But I liked a nice bookstore. I could survive on a bookstore and it was fun. What happened to those bookstores? Why are they all wiped out? Amazon. Amazon invested in figuring out, how do I do this business a lot better? And then you're sitting over here, you think, I'm safe. You're not safe. An IDE can come over and eat your lunch over here. So this is a big, important thing. And let me just go. By the way, if there are questions, you're going to have to jump in and ask questions. But as someone said, question mark. It can't just be a statement. They say it's a question, and it's not a question. It's a statement, and they're going to make a public statement. What's all right. So So we just defined entrepreneurship, right? Let's go back to this. We just defined entrepreneurship, creating something there was nothing before. It's an exercise in market forces. How do you get paid for something? How do you create value, help someone make money, do something, have impact? And then how do you get paid? And what you get paid exceeds your costs, so you can economically sustain this thing. It's not a one-shot deal. It's something that actually you can grow over time to have more impact. And then we talked about there's two types of SME entrepreneurship. There's the SME entrepreneurship, small, medium enterprise. It basically stays small, medium enterprise. And then there's this high growth one. And in the high growth, the difference is you have something that's innovative. What do we mean by innovative? Let's define that term now, because the first rule of engineering is define your terms before you solve a problem. Innovation is something that creates positive impact. Think in a simple business, if you're a for-profit, it makes money for you. Yes, 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 please. I know what I'm going to say, and it bores me to hear myself, so please.
So we've just been through the definition of entrepreneurship, and we have done that entirely within the context of capitalism.
Yes.
Is that the only way?
That's the only way I know. I didn't say that, just to be clear. I'm not saying that entrepreneurship is all about profiteering. For us, entrepreneurship is an ethical activity that uses market forces to create a positive impact on the world. If you're doing entrepreneurship simply for profiteering, that's not what we're talking about, just to be clear. Because that's not going to make you successful. Let me clarify that. If I don't have something to write on, which is kind of a mistake, but if you're just in this for money, and you think you're going to start a great new organization just for money, it's not going to work that way. Because no organization just goes like this. What happens is it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And guess what? If you recruit people just to make the most money, then there are going to be times when they don't make the most money. And guess what? They're going to be leaving. They're gone. They're going to go work at Goldman Sachs. They're going to go work at new cryptocurrency startup or bada, 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 boom, right? And that's when you need the most, because if your company starts going and it starts going down and your people start leaving, guess what happens? You're in a death spiral. And you're not going to make money. And so you have to have some better reason that people will stay with you through the ups and downs. And that is not money. That is what we call, you have to have a raison d'etre. Have you heard of raison d'etre?
I'm not heard of that, but I've heard this now before, though, where, like, you mentioned as well, this concept of, become an entrepreneur.
Okay, sorry. So the narrative I've heard before is what you also mentioned, which is like become an entrepreneur. And if you are successful, and I'm more interested in the apps, I'm also an optimist, you will sleep at night and your money will make money for you, your company will make money for you. But then I still am not satisfied with that. For me, the interesting part, if you can tell us, like, okay, you are successful, but there should be more that happens when you sleep at night.
And so let me be very clear. When I say make money, translate that to having positive impact as well. That's the point. Thank you for the correction. Thank you for the clarification correction here. This is about an entrepreneur says, I'm going to do this thing, and that is not just making money. Because if it's just making money, you're not. But my point, I simplify things sometimes. I can be asleep and people are still downloading my product. They're still buying my product. And that product is having a positive impact on the world. It is also, from a market standpoint, the point of capitalism, it's making money because I'm going to have to pay people to run this organization. And that I might not be doing it for profit, but I have to be able to have enough money to sustain myself, right? Let me give you an analogy. On a plane, they say, before you help other people, put the oxygen mask on. Put the oxygen mask on. Do you know what oxygen is in an organization? It's cash. You need cash to continue to go. You're from a nonprofit. She runs a refugee organization for refugees. She wants to help refugees. She can't do it by having people just feel good. They need to have money to be able to do things to get through. So money by itself is no justification for it. Money is not I'm not here to tell you money is a bad thing. You need money to help other people sometimes. And for us, and I can go through and show you time after time where my students have made companies that have saved literally millions of lives, that they have done it using these tools that I'm talking about, because then you create an economically sustainable organization that allows them to do the good things that they want. Great, thank you.
At the beginning, my question was, can you define entrepreneurship but in a communist system? But then now my question is, are you able to define entrepreneurship but without mentioning money?
No. No.
So you cannot be entrepreneurship
that's another lecture. I think that lecture is about 2,000 miles north of here. That was a joke. I'm not a communist. By the way, I have people who take my course who say they're anti-capitalists, and they're very proud of it, and they use these techniques to positively impact the world. But I don't want to be here what the techniques I'm teaching you make society better. Entrepreneurship, the way we teach it, is mission-driven. It's an ethical activity. It's not about profiteering. Samuel Bankman-Fried never went through our doors of our center, just to be clear. Okay, so let's go back to innovation. I'm sorry to be so direct, but I think it's important we cover these. Innovation is something that has positive impact. Let's simplify. It makes money for an organization so they can sustain themselves. It gives them the oxygen to keep them going, to do their mission. So but it's something different than anybody's done before. That's what innovation is. That's what innovation is. So innovation must equal invention. Invention is the same thing as innovation. No, it is not. It is not. It is not. Let me put this stark terms. An invention is something like a patent. Does anybody here have a patent? Anybody have a patent? Yes, do you have a patent? Do you know how much you have a patent? Do you know how much they cost today? They'll cost over $100,000 if you want to do it correctly, maybe $200,000 to do it around the world, right? You have a patent, sir? Have you made money off your patent? You have? Wow. Have you made money off your patent? Getting there. Yeah, that's what most people say. Well, we have a lot of patents at MIT. Probably 99% of them never make any money, just to be clear. Patents cost you money. They do not make you money. Patents by themselves do not make you money. Everybody get that? They don't make you money. There's no guarantee when you have a patent that you make money. It costs you money. So this is obviously not the same thing as this. Just that at the highest gross level, this makes you money, this costs you money. Something's missing. What's missing here is very important. It's commercialization. It's how do you figure out what this idea, this technology, this patent can be used for to create value, right? That is very, very important. We as a society over-index for disruptive invention, disruptive technology. Yes, and I am from MIT. The T stands for technology. And I'm here telling you that disruptive technology is overrated. It's about how do you figure out what this patent, this technology, this idea can be used for to make a positive impact on the world. And this is what we under-index, and that is the process of entrepreneurship. How do you figure out who will benefit from this? And let me just give you concrete examples how this is underrated. You need both. You can't have this be zero. You see, this is a product. If this is zero and this is infinite, that's still zero. But if this is zero commercialization, you get no innovation. And let me give you an example. The most innovative company of the past 3 decades, without question, has been who? Apple. That's correct. Apple. Apple. They changed the computer industry, they changed the music industry, they changed the telecommunication industry. What is a big invention? Let's start with the computer. Why did they change the computer industry? Does anybody know? You're all so young. Well, no, Yeah, it was.
That was the time where the microprocessor was becoming commercially available.
But still, even when it got smaller, you know, I was at IBM, they used to just put text up on the screen. You would just have text, letters, numbers. That's all we had. I worked at IBM. That's all we had on the screen. Windows pixels on the screen. It's called Windows icon mouse pointer. It changed the whole game. Computers went from these things that put numbers and letters up there to do, you know, accounting, to actually doing almost whatever you want. First thing was desktop publishing. But before that, there was no, it was just letters and numbers that came up there.
Can we combine that with the studies of Steve Jobs on calligraphy?
That was enabled by having pixels on the screen. But the fundamental invention that allowed all this other stuff was Windows icon, mouse pointer, pixels on the screen. Now, here's a question. Who invented that? Was that Steve Jobs or was that Steve Wozniak? Because those are the two founders of Apple. Who invented that, Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak? Anybody know? Neither? What do you mean neither of them invented it? Yeah, you guys are pretty well educated. You should have been quiet. Who invented it, Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak? And the students in my class will go, it was a Woz. Jobs didn't do it. And by the way, it was neither Jobs nor Wozniak. It was nobody at Apple who invented it. Just to be clear, it was this company called Xerox. And today, Apple is $1 trillion company. So this company called Xerox Park must be worth a ton more because they invented it, right? Where's Xerox Park today? It doesn't exist. It was sold in a fire sale to Japanese. Xerox Park does not exist. Even though they invented it, they could not commercialize it. Steve Jobs stole it, what we like to call today, laterally innovated it out of Xerox Park. And he created a monstrously successful company. Do you understand? Xerox Park also invented the laser printer. They invented the backbone of the Ethernet that becomes the backbone of the. They invented so much stuff, they did not know how to commercialize it. So their innovation ends up at zero and they're out of business. And so they're not helping anybody right now. And you say, well, that was one time. Apple really got it together after that. That was just what they did at the beginning. Wait a second. The music industry, the fundamental technology behind how you put 1,000, you know, what really enabled them to create the iPod was MP3 technology. Now, let me ask you students, was that Jobs or was that Wozniak who invented that? Jobs? No. There's a pattern here. Neither. They laterally innovated that from whom? See, you don't even know. And they're right next door.
I'm not sure I can pronounce it correctly. It's the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany.
Yeah, I'm worried about you. We got to do more diligence on you. It is the Fraunhofer Institute. And I'll be in a crowd of thousands of people, and no one will know that Fraunhofer invented the MP3 technology behind it. So Fraunhofer must be worth trillions of dollars now. What are they worth? No, we don't. Nobody in the room even knows who Fraunhofer is. And I could go on and show you. And Steve Jobs made no bones about this. He said, good artists create, great artists steal. And you know what's funny about that quote? Not just it being true. Pablo Picasso said that quote before him. So he's laterally innovating quotes. And yet today, if you ask people who says that quote, they'll say Steve Jobs. And it was actually Pablo Picasso, if you look it up. And so here's my point is that we get obsessed with this. And yet, if you look at history, Nikola Tesla didn't have an impact in his lifetime. It was Thomas Edison who had an impact because Nikola Tesla could not commercialize, but Edison could. And Edison was a far inferior inventor to Nikola Tesla. But when this is zero, his innovation was off the charts compared to Tesla. And so my point here is, you all, whether you're great engineers, learn this commercialization part so you can have a positive impact on the world. It's something you can learn. And you might say, great, I get it then. I'm really good at invention. I'm just going to get someone who's great at commercialization. At MIT, we call this a hacker and a hustler. You heard Dulcie talk about that earlier today. Well, it's not quite that simple. Like when I was at IBM, we had terrific invention. We had the most patents in the computer industry by far at Thomas Watson Research Center. We had the best marketing and sales force, yet we lost the computer industry. We lost the computer industry. How could that be? Like you just said, innovation equals invention times commercialization, and no one came close. This is actually a three-dimensional problem. It's not just invention and commercialization. It's a question of how fast these things can iterate with each other. What my colleague Charlie Fine calls clock speed. How quickly can you take what you see in the marketplace and get something out, the hacker to make a product, to get it back to see how that works in the marketplace? And technology allows this to happen. ChatGPT just said this could be possible. What could that be used for in the marketplace? It's this iterative loop going back and forth between these that makes you successful and makes you truly innovative. It's a 3D problem here. And when you look at this, having this ability to go back and forth is what we're calling clock speed. And the great example with IBM is we got our clocks cleaned by a company called Compaq. They had inferior invention to us, inferior commercialization. Yet, when I was at IBM, which I was at the time, we took this over and said, look, this is what's going on. We need this. By the time they got us a new product back, it was literally 2 years to 3 years later. Compaq could do that in months. And so what they did, even though they had inferior invention, inferior commercialization, they had both, and they iterated, and they figured out how to win the personal computer market and stole it from IBM, and IBM never recovered. And so entrepreneurs, one of the advantages you have is you can have clock speed, but you've got to have a hacker and you've got to have a hustler on your team. You got to have invention, and you don't have to invent it yourself, but you have to have someone who can recognize good technology, good solutions, and bring them to, and work with someone to bring them to market. Okay, so I talked about, and I'm not going to go back on this, entrepreneurship is more than just being in a startup. Hopefully you all will get skills to understand this, and you can go back and apply it in your careers and in your personal life. Everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, because the world, as I mentioned, is just going faster and faster. And the people who can deal with change effectively and see change as a positive thing are the entrepreneurs. And those are the people who are going to lead the world going forward, whether they're in startups, whether they're in government, whether in large companies, nonprofits, whatever. Okay, here's what's not true about entrepreneurship. And then I'd like to do an exercise if we can. Well, maybe. Entrepreneurship, despite what you see in the movies, is not an individual sport. It's not about mercurial individuals. I'm sure you've seen Social Network. How many of you have seen Social Network? Unfortunately, I think that movie has done more damage to entrepreneurship than almost anything else I've ever seen. That is not the model for entrepreneurship. It's not to be a jerk and step on other people. And entrepreneurship is a team sport. The research is clear. If you have a team, you are much more likely to be successful than the individual founder. You heard Dulcie talk about that, bring a swim buddy. Let me repeat, entrepreneurship is a team sport, it's not an individual sport. Second thing is, those people are so smart and I'm not that smart. Rubbish. Entrepreneurs are not that smart. What they are is they're smart enough, and then they get focused on one problem and they get obsessed with solving that problem. I'm not talking about passionate. I'm passionate about food. That doesn't mean I should start a restaurant. You have to be really, I really, really want to solve this problem. This means a lot to me. Because you heard Dulcie talk about it. I'm willing to spend the next 5 years of my life to solve this problem. That's how you build a great company. That's how you fight through the issues that Dulcie was talking about. So that doesn't mean you have to be the smartest at it. And let me just give you a great example of this. I have an engineering degree from an arts and crafts school in the United States called Harvard. MIT people find it hysterically funny that Harvard gives out engineering degrees. I said, how do you get an engineering degree in finger painting? I don't understand. And philosophy. But I am not a great engineer. However, when we had this, our second company was a company called Sensible Technologies. It was a very complicated mechanical computer science one. And I'm pretty good. I was pretty good at computer science. Well, I thought I was until I saw people at MIT. I was not good at electrical. I was not good at mechanical. But if you asked me any question about 3D force feedback, I seemed like a freaking genius. And I assure you, I was not. But how did that happen? Because if he asked me a question about 3D force feedback and I did not understand it, I was going to ask him 20 questions to understand why was he asking, what is the question exactly, write it all down. And then I would not go to sleep that night until I had figured out what the answer to that question was. And then when he asked it to me tomorrow, he's like, damn, he's smart. And then he would ask me a question. I didn't understand it. I'd figure out what that is. And after going through this enough times that I'm obsessed with it, I look pretty smart. And that's what I mean. Entrepreneurs aren't the smartest. They don't try to be expert in everything. They think, I'm going to be really, really good at this. And then that's what they focus on. So the next thing is you're born. This is just rubbish. You know, there's some gene, there's some trait. Oh, you have to be an extrovert. Yeah, rubbish, absolute rubbish. I can't tell you this enough. There's no data that supports this whatsoever. It's just urban myth. Entrepreneurs love risk. I don't like risk. This is, again, something that, yes, sir.
Really sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
On the previous one, don't you have to have very good emotional intelligence to work with groups and people and lead them eventually?
First of all, entrepreneurship is a team sport. So if you have to be able to communicate to people. But Dulcie Madden was very good at that. But the other people on the team, where my students weren't good at that, and they could get, and then they realized that there has to be some self-awareness. Now, I think that, like, your point is, you have to be able to acknowledge that, you know, there are certain things you have to do. You can't be super arrogant, right? You have to say, it's not about me, it's about the customer solving the problem. And if you can do, and I believe everybody can do that. But
in the case of Apple, it worked. It was not at all emotional intelligence.
Yeah. But by the way, I would not believe 90% or more of the stuff you hear about Steve Jobs. Just to be clear. Like, I knew him, I knew people who worked for him. History gets rewritten after the fact. Like, you think that it was all Steve Jobs? He's written out Wozniak, he's written out Mark Mercola, he's written about a ton of other people. Just think, how much in this world does one individual get done? Outside of Hollywood, right? You know, you alienate people like he did at times, and he ends up with Next. Remember Next Computer? A colossal failure. And then he realized that wasn't going to work. He started to believe his own BS. And then that didn't work. And then he went back. And despite what he'll tell you, he was humbled and he became willing to listen to other people and do that. You know, so I mean, don't get me wrong. Steve Jobs is amazing in so many ways, but he also had ego, and a huge ego. We all have egos, and he rewrote history in some ways that don't give the interpretation. But will you have to have, and that's one of the reasons why some people say, hey, you know, I'm going to drop out of school and I want to become an entrepreneur like those other people when I'm 18 years old. Don't drop out of school, just to be clear. Like, to the point, I don't know your name, but the point he's making over here.
I'm Chris.
Chris. The point he's making is, to run an organization, to build teams, you have to understand other people. It's not just about coding. Like, and when people drop out, what do you think the average age of a successful entrepreneur is? Anybody know? Yeah? 30? 40? I thought it was 21, because when I see in the movie, they're all 21 years old and they're all bros. It's like 38 to 40. And by the way, you can have young people on your team, you have that, but the myth that it's just about tech bros writing code, no, right? You have to have intelligence of how to manage people. And to me, I worked at IBM for 11 years, and that was a blessing for me to be able to, because when these other people were doing it, I wasn't as good a coder as them, but I understood how you hire people, how you motivate them, how you, quite honestly, fire people. You know, it comes down to the team, which I'll get to in a second. I want to go back to this one. Entrepreneurs love risk. This is like really ill-framed. I don't like to take risk. I don't go to casinos. You know, I don't go to casinos either. I think it's stupid. I mean, this to me is not a test of whether you're an entrepreneur. It's a test of whether you understand math. If you understand math and you play this and you think you're going to win, you don't understand math. Like, if you go into a casino and you pull a one-arm bandit and say, I feel good, here it comes, this is it. You're an idiot. You don't understand math. They're going to win. You can say, but I just won once. Yeah, you sucker. You're going to win more times. You're going to lose more times than you win. This is a test of math. Everybody got that? This is not, no entrepreneur would do that. That's how much time I have left? Oh, when am I done? In 1 minute? 1 minute? All right. So this is a great one for risk. And then I'll stick around if anybody wants to. But MIT had a team, a blackjack team. And you might have seen them in the movies. You might have read the book. And they went into casinos. And they did really, really well because they didn't play these games. They played one game and one game only. And that was blackjack. That's good. That's why it's called the Blackjack Team. Very insightful. Good. Thank you for that insight. You must be Greek. Yeah, they play blackjack. Why did they play blackjack, sir?
Because it's mathematically easier to
Okay, first of all, it's mathematically better than playing this, but that's not, you're still not going to win. Math is still on their side. You have agency. You have agency. I'll just do this quick because they're going to kick me off. They have agency when you play blackjack. I can make a decision to increase my odds or decrease my odds, which gives people like, oh, I can change this thing here, right? The odds are still not in your favor unless what, sir? Cheat. I don't call it cheating. Count the cards. If I can count the cards, the odds, I can flip the cards in my favor. So I have agency, I can count the cards. You say, but do casinos know that? They absolutely know that. And how do they stop it? Do you know? They put cameras all around the blackjack table. It's the most watched place in the play. All around the blackjack table. They're watching it. So how did MIT do this? Very interesting. This isn't the movie. It's not in the book. They would form a team, and it would be the three of us and her. And they had an insight. Casinos did not believe that women would or could count cards. It's true. It's true. This is true. They did not believe that they would count cards. I'm just going to assume that it was would or here. All right. And so their cameras would study him, and myself. And so what did the MIT team do? She counted the cards, and then and then she doesn't sit at the table because then they'll figure it out. But we just act like idiots, like, you know, oh, we got lucky here. And who's signaling to us what the cards are? She's signaling the cards to us. But they're oblivious to this. They can't see it. It's just not in their vision. They can't. And the point here is, you're excited about this. You're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go now. The point is that they had an insight that flipped the odds into their favor. And now will you play that game, sir? No, yeah, no, yeah. Would you please be agreeable here? Like, yes, you're going to play the game because we have a team and we have asymmetric information that flips the odds into our favor. Now will I play blackjack with the MIT team? I'll play it every day of the week and twice on Saturday and Sunday. And guess what? Even if I lose on Monday, I'll be back on Tuesday because I'm going to win. I'm going to win. Point. There is no place in the world where there's no risk at all. Unless you get tenure at MIT, and then that's just a bubble that, forget it, you're not going to do it. But all of us have risk in our lives. The question is, how are we going to take intelligent, informed risk? And that's what you learn as an entrepreneur. And so this little story helps in that. So just wrapping up, it's not about charisma. It's about selling authentic value. Being an entrepreneur is not about being lucky. You can be lucky. I'm not saying that it does happen. One of you could go out and buy a lottery ticket. Then you don't need to listen to anything I'm saying. But the odds aren't in your favor doing that either. Math is a funny thing. You have to see where the opportunity is and then put your work into to get there. And then you got it. Once you decide to be different, once you decide to do this thing, you have to be incredibly disciplined. When I was at IBM, I thought I was disciplined. I was not disciplined anywhere near when I had to be an entrepreneur. You know why? Because if you're an entrepreneur and you're not disciplined, you don't make payroll. And you know what happens when you don't make payroll, sir? You make less impact, yet you make zero impact. Your business, your organization doesn't exist anymore. You know, when you're dead, you can't help anybody. Yeah, and so all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait a second, that's pretty profound. So I need to get the customer to buy the product and tell other people it's good. Otherwise, we're out of business. Whereas at IBM, I just thought payroll came from God above twice a month, and it was a God-given right, and that we just let's do the important things like dress up and get to meetings early and say the right things and make our manager look good. And so don't ever underestimate how disciplined entrepreneurs are. And that's why I call it disciplined entrepreneurship. Now I'm going to be kicked off here. Let me just say, entrepreneurs don't fail as much as you think, especially if you're disciplined. Our entrepreneurs at MIT, they're in business 5 years later. And the ones who aren't in business actually have skill sets that allow them to go on and be technically twice as productive as the ones that stayed with their original company. Entrepreneurship is a skill set, mindset skill set that pays dividends over and over again. And it's tough, it's not easy, but success rates are very, very high, much higher than you'd think. And the other thing is, it's not about your original idea. The original idea is the least important thing with regard to success. It's about figuring out, is there a customer out there that you can solve a real problem for that has money to pay you for the value you're creating so you can continue to work, keep going? Can you execute against that with discipline? And do you have a diverse, coherent, cohesive team? That's what will make you successful. So I can't go through all this. It's a craft. There's a whole bunch of videos. If you want to go, there's a website called disciplinedentrepreneurship.com, or if you can't spell, d-eship.com, and all this stuff is there and a whole bunch more. I'm going to stick around. I don't know, when's the next session start?
1:30.
Starts now? 1:30? Okay. So you can go to another session. I'm going to do something different in the next session if you're interested. Do you have a question, ma'am, before you go? I'm going to do something different in the next session. Unless you like this so much you want to hear it again. Because Deb's heard this talk 100 times, and he said it's like hearing a song over and over again. Mick Jagger, I can't get no satisfaction. Yeah. So I'm going to do something different in this next one. Is how does this actually work in practice? But please feel free to leave. You're a free electron. You can go someplace else and we won't feel offended. But we'll start up in 5 minutes. But if you have questions, feel free to come up, and I won't be speaking over the microphone.